Good morning, everyone. How are you today? My name is Michael Gibbs, and I'm the founder and CEO of GoCloud Careers. And we're here today to help you build your absolute best cloud computing career. Perhaps it's your goal to become a cloud architect, or a solution architect, or an enterprise architect, or a cloud engineer, whatever the tech career of your dreams is. That's why we're here. So you know exactly what it'll take you to get you to your goals as fast as possible. See, I've been working in technology now for about 25 years. And I've been helping others build their best career now for over 20 years. And I want to help you get hired, promoted, or whatever it takes to help you build the tech career of your dreams. And that's why I'm here. So, in today's 2 hour question and answer session, bring us any questions that you have about building your career, what to learn, what to study, things that hiring managers care about. We will help you get cloud hired or cloud promoted. That's why we do everything we do at Go Cloud Architects and Go Cloud Careers. Other folks are worried about a silly certification that you can hang on your wall and nobody will hire you with. And we're focused on getting you hired, paid more, and promoted. So that's our world. So we have a couple of really, really exciting things to talk about for you before we begin. So many of them are actually free. I'm going to start with the free things. Today, what time is it today, Chris, when we have the free practice interview session?
It's at 2 o'clock.
Okay, at 2 o'clock today, we have a free practice interview session. I've interviewed about 6,000 people in my career, and I'm going to interview those that signed up completely free. You'll get to experience a cloud architect or a cloud engineer interview based upon who's applying for which jobs, the types of questions that'll be asked, the kind of responses that work, the kind of responses that don't work, and you can see what your competition is. In the art of war, they say if you want to win, if you know yourself and know your enemy, you need not fear the result of 1,000 battles. If you know yourself and not your enemy, for every one win, there'll be one loss. Know the enemy and not yourself, for every one win, there'll be one loss. Don't know yourself and don't know your enemy, which is unfortunately where most people are at. Lose, lose, lose. So I want to teach you yourself and your competition so you can get cloud hired and win the employment warehouse. So join us today for the interview session at 2 p.m. It's going to be a great learning experience for you. I promise you'll learn so much. Now, on Friday, the LinkedIn, today we're going to teach you a little bit about how to interview. And if you've got the technical competency, then you can get hired. If you don't have the competency, you can't just do it in an interview. Now, on Friday, we're going to have a LinkedIn and resume workshop and teach you how to build a cloud architect or cloud engineer resume. And it's going to be completely free. So please sign up. The link is in the chat box. Now, I've asked my team to extend the Labor Day discount. We're currently off at 30%, which is something that we don't do that often. And I want you all to take advantage of this so you can get cloud hired. So 30% off of all of our programs, training things, sessions right now. So I hope you took advantage of some of these things. So remember the webinar today on how to interview. The LinkedIn and resume workshop on Friday. Please make sure you sign up. Don't lose the chance to go through this magical experience. I have students that get 10 to 20 people reaching out to them per day after we've tuned their resume, trying to hire them. The 30% off Labor Day discount, and make sure that you're here. The 30-day coupon code is 30LABOR, as in 30 Lima, Alpha, Bravo, Oscar, and Romeo. So there you go. So at this point, the reason we're here is to answer your questions so we can help you build your best cloud computing in your career. And that's what we're gonna do. So ask your questions, give us a cloud hire, tell us where you're from in the chat box, and ask us your questions so we can build your absolute best cloud computing career. Give me a cloud hired so I know you're here. Tell me the career of your dreams, cloud architect, cloud engineer, solution architect, or whatever it is. And then go there. Now, I know there's 18, 20 people right now going on. And I only see one question. So we're here to help you. So please feel free to ask your questions. Don't be shy. I'm a soft, cuddly teddy bear, and I love to answer questions. That's why I do this free 3 times per week. Eddie Patrick, cloud hired. How are you today? MBUWA Lambert, it's always good to see you. Victor, good to see you. Cloud hired. Mashaba, cloud hired, it's really good to see you. Good to see you, MBUWA Lambert. I know where you're at, and I've watched you grow so much. It's fantastic. Lady Godiva, what a cool name for that. Good morning and Cloud Hire to you as well. Here to win. Hi, Mike. Is there anything that we should be aware of with the new AWS exam? So, here to win, we're going to do a couple things. One is we are updating our book because there's a couple of subtle changes, and soon you may see a new boot camp from us to cover these new things. Look, here to win, there are some subtle changes. There's some more machine learning and AI type things in there. There's a little bit. All in all, if you could have passed the old one, you'll still be able to pass the new one. But there are subtle changes. There's more big data things in there. There's more machine learning things. And there are a few subtle changes. Because of that, my team is writing a new version of the book, which of course we'll give away completely for free, like we do everything, because we want to change lives throughout the world. And you may see another free boot camp coming very, very soon to prepare you for those other subtle differences. Now, here to win, our focus is more on getting hired than passing the certification exam, and here's the reason why. I've interviewed 1,000 AWS certified people prior to starting this company, and none of them were hireable. Now, the reason none of them were hireable is they took the certifications from the certification providers to get a bunch of certifications and then teach a course teaching something they don't know anything about. And that's why they weren't hireable, because if your coach isn't good and your coach is only teaching you the tech and you want to be applying for some of these bigger jobs, it's not enough. But yes, there are some subtle changes. And because of those subtle changes, we'll be releasing a new book in the coming months, completely free. And we are going to do another free boot camp. But subtle changes, very subtle changes. And that's really the key. So here to win, when I was younger, and I just started my tech career, I didn't completely get it. And I wanted the newest version of the book. Oh, there was version 2 and a version 3, and I had to have the newest. Here's what I learned in the last 25 years of tech here to win. All the stuff I do now in the cloud, 98% of it I learned in 1996. Because what happens is, it's kind of like the Who song, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. And, if you want to be a good architect, what do you need to know, for example? Well, you need to know BGP, you need to know OSPF, you need to know IP addressing, subnetting, and supernetting. You need to know WAN technologies such as IPsec tunnels, SSL-based VPNs, private lines, Ethernet over MPLS, software-defined networking, and SASE. And when we're going back with this, we're talking about NAT, one-to-one NAT, one-to-many NAT, static NAT, dynamic NAT, PAT. We're talking about DNS, DHCP, ARP, proxy ARP. We're talking about switching protocols, VLANs and VLAN tagging and VLAN trunking, and virtual router redundancy protocols for when you've got multiple links and failovers. Kind of keep those things in the back of your mind, and port channels and ether channels and link aggregation groups. And on the tech side, you're dealing with servers and server virtualization and containers and container orchestration and block storage, object storage, and file storage. You're dealing with load balancers and load balancer stacking, and you're dealing with, CRM systems, ERP systems, other types of unified communications and other type of business systems that are out there. And then you're dealing with next generation firewalls, best security, VPN concentrators, and IDS IPS systems. And then from there, it's like, which AWS service do we use, or which Azure service do we use? So when it comes down to it here to win, at least from the architect perspective, we go meet with that customer and we go find out, what business problem are we trying to solve? And they say, here's the business problem. Then we map it out to a technology solution. And then from there, what the next thing that we do is as follows. We determine which cloud we're going to, kind of like, are we going to Home Depot or Lowe's to buy a brick? And that's all it is. All the clouds are the same. It's a network and a data center that's been virtualized. So then we go to the what do you call it? We go to the cloud vendors or the store and figure out a virtual machine. And then we say, it's going to be on Azure, so they call it a virtual machine. Hey, that virtual machine is going to be AWS. And they call it an elastic compute cloud. So who makes this nonsense up? And then you call Google and the Google cloud, and they call it a compute engine instance. It's just a virtual machine. Just the thing is here to win, the same things to be hired are the same things now as they were last year, and they're going to be the same things you need 5 years from now. That doesn't change. The business acumen, the communication skills, the leadership skills, the sales skills, the executive presence skills, the emotional intelligence skills, the ability to build a business case and do an ROI model, the ability to present in front of an audience of thousands of people, the ability to write thought leadership documents, the ability to work the conference booth, the ability to do an executive briefing, being able to present to that CIO, CEO, CTO, CFO. See, that's the job. That's the job. And none of it's related to what's in these certifications. So yes, there are subtle changes. Yes, we are going to be producing a new free course for it because we want you to get certified. Yes, we are also producing a free book for it, but all in all, like the Who song, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. And that's really what I want to get you to. Understand that if you know the tech and truly understand the tech, how it works, the transformation that it perceives, then you're going to stay current. Now, how fast does tech change here to win? Well, when I was younger and I started tech, there was this little RFC, request for comments, which are usually specifications. And this one was called RFC 1925. And they had some great things in there, like no matter how much you want, you can't get the speed of light faster than it is, which is basically true, unless you're going through hot plasma. Some physicists proved us otherwise the other day, which was really cool from a physics perspective. But, the speed of light and the means latency is always going to be a problem. And one of the things that's there is everything new is just some version of the old thing. If I tell you that when you're dealing with cloud networking, it's 20 years old behind where we're at. And it's kind of amazing. Last year, AWS, and wow, we allow east-west routing, massive blogs and press releases like it was the newest thing. And I went, yeah, Cisco did this in 1985. And very recently, AWS put out another big article, exciting. I saw the principal architects on LinkedIn. We now support IPsec over direct connection. And I was thinking, isn't it legendary? And I was thinking, yeah, but I did that in 1997 or 1998 with Cisco stuff. It's not new. And then we saw something the other day. Oh my God, brand new exciting things. You can now get network-based information through transit gateways. And I went, yes, so this was Cisco NetFlow in 1999. So the point is here to win. It's the same thing. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. There are subtle differences. But when you're an architect, nobody cares if you're already certified once you're working. It will help you get an interview. So the key here to win is learn the cloud, learn digital transformation, learn all those skills in your job, if you want for your job. And if it's an architect, it's digital transformation. If it's a cloud engineer, it's building, hands-on and performance tuning. All wonderful things. But certification should be the lowest priority in your training. Becoming competent, becoming exceptional, being a master of your job. Here to win, Del Rabat just recently got a cloud security architect job, no certifications whatsoever. But he was an exceptional architect, extremely good. I think it was my student Jeffrey Rest that had a cloud practitioner when he got his first cloud architect job, which is really a certification for sales reps on selling stuff. Why? Because he was great. It was about being great. So yes, we'll have a new book. Yes, we'll have a new completely free course coming real soon, at least for the free course. And we'll cover all these new things because we want you to all be super successful. So actually in the chat box, put free AWS Solution Architect Bootcamp. And I'm going to do one for you coming soon with all the new stuff. But remember one thing, focus on being great at your job. Before we go to the next question, please make sure you join us tomorrow for the completely free How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. And if you're a cloud engineer, I'll answer your questions as well. We will tell you everything you need to get hired. We will show you the things that hiring managers demand. We will tell you what to do when you have no experience to bypass HR and get hired. And I'll tell you how to get hired, what needs to be on your resume. And it's going to be a great experience, and it's completely free. So sign up. The link is in the chat box and the description below. And if you just joined us, please and you're having a good time, please hit the like button, Subscribe and hit the bell so you get informed of all the new stuff that we're going to do, like today's completely free practice interview session at 2 p.m. Eastern, which is 7 p.m. UK time, 8 p.m. in Central Europe or Cameroon, where we've got a lot of tremendous, wonderful people as well in both of those locations. So please feel free to ask some more questions. Patrick, really happy to watch you today. Patrick, my wonderful, wonderful student, who's now a graduate working at Cisco while he's becoming an architect as well and is learning great things every day. I am thrilled to see you here. And I'm thrilled here at Cisco, my old stomping grounds. I spent almost a decade there. Absolutely loved it there. Lady Godiva, what helps you determine if your interviews? You wouldn't want to be cloud hired to cloud fired. Well, Lady Godiva, this is really good news. Now, for a cloud architect, all we do is talk. We don't touch the tech. So as a cloud architect, we go meet with our clients, we ask the right questions, we build design, we present it back to them, we negotiate the sales deal, and once it's closed, we go to somebody else. So the question is, for an architect, can you design an end-to-end solution? So if I said to you, we have a bank that's got a trading application that is extremely latency sensitive, and nanosecond is a competitive advantage. And then I told you that security is absolutely critical, and this company will spend an unlimited budget to secure it. And then I told you that this company has information coming in from years, and they'd like to make better, more informed business decisions based upon the historical information they have, better stock pricing and trades and automated trading. What if I told you this customer said, we'd like when they call their financial advisor for their financial advisor to pick up the calling line identification information and take that information and dig into a database to give the financial advisor a screen pop on their screen that says, this is Mike Gibbs. Mike Gibbs' risk tolerance is this. His holdings are this. Please describe this new product to him. He may be interested. And then if you told me you want your employees to be located in every country in the world, that you wanted to use time zones as a way to get support done 24 hours a day by using people throughout different parts of the world. And you said, and I asked you to design that, and you said, Mike, I got it. That's what a cloud architect does. And if you can do that, you are ready to be cloud hired. Now, if you're a cloud architect and you know how to set up an S3 bucket, you are not ready, because cloud architects don't set up S3 buckets. They design a solution to solve those problems. So if you're not sure, come today to this interview and you'll see. But that's architecture. So how do you know if you're ready to interview? You can do it. You can make that design. You know exactly what to use with a little bit of thinking about it. You heard all those communication things, and instantly it sets off red flags. Okay, I got a latency problem, so how am I going to mitigate that latency? I got a unified communications thing. How do we tie in unified communications to screen pops? Okay. Now, if we've got unified communications as a thing, what does that tell us about our network latency, our network performance? Do we need quality of service? What does that tell us about the routing? Now, we got to move 10,000 servers. What do they need to be? How do they need to work? So those are the things how you're going to know. Now, the good news in most cases is if you can pass in a cloud architect interview, you're probably going to be hired, and here's why. As cloud architects, we don't touch the technology. So Lady Godiva, what do we do as architects? We go to meetings, and more meetings. And what happens in these meetings? We go to meetings and we advise clients. We discuss business challenges. We discuss how to tune a business's performance. We talk about the technology they have versus the technology that can enable future revenue opportunities and efficiency opportunities and business opportunities. How do we take cost out of the business? How do we automate routine processes? That's architecture. And that's the key. If you know how to do the job, you know how to do the job. Now, Lady Godiva, the things that I just told you, that's what you're going to get from the customer. Nobody's going to hand us a thing and say, build this. We're not cloud admins and we're not cloud engineers. So your competency is really based upon if you're an architect. And I'll tell you the engineering competency next. If you're an architect, your competency is based on how much do you know about business and how much do you know about network and data center technologies. Now, Lady Godiva, if all you know is the cloud, there's nothing you can do. Wait, why is Mike saying this? If all you know is the cloud, there's nothing you can do. Well, Lady Godiva, I want you to think about this. Almost nobody starts out on the cloud, except they're a brand new business. Almost everybody we deal with has a data center. And even after the cloud, chances are they're still going to have a data center to run some low latency workloads in their data center and leverage the technology investments they already had. And oh, by the way, if the cloud goes down, which it does all the time, and you don't have a second data center or a second cloud, you go down too, which is also a problem. Now, Lady Godiva is the same thing. If I asked you how to define a 5 nines network that's going to be bulletproof, and if AWS crashes or Azure crashes is still up, that's also going into architecture. Where's the data going? Where's the storage going? Now, I mentioned tech things, but we also have to remember, and I see someone who's asking a question about a nurse. Deepa, I'm going to get into that. I know a lot about being a nurse, a lot more than you'll ever imagine, and a lot about getting nurses to be architects. So please stand by. I don't want to lose you. I've lots of experience with nurses, a lot of it. So, that's the key. You have to be able to answer the right questions. You have to understand about business inputs for the architect. What drives revenue? How do we reduce operating costs? What is the goal of the CEO? What does the CEO care about? What does the CFO care about? So, Lady Godiva, those are the things that need to be there. You will know. I have a student, Derek, and he was almost ready, and they had some family changes that took him out of it for a little while. And he came to one of my classes, and I was so excited. And he says, Mike, I had a dream. And in my dream, I was setting up the BGP to 4 different internet service providers. I was setting up my WAN to the cloud on 2 things. I was looking at where my firewalls went, my intrusion detection. I was designing the demilitarized zones. He said I was designing the encryption strategy. I did the compute and the storage. And I went, wow. And I was happy. It actually brought me to tears, because when you start designing systems in your sleep, that's when you're there. So come to the interview today. It's completely free at 2 p.m. Eastern, and which equates to 7 p.m. UK time, 8 p.m. Central European time, or WAT. I'm not sure where you're at. But the name Lady Godiva, in case you're around that region, thinking about it, I just want to make sure that we get you covered. Please join us today, and you will know. You will know. And if you're an engineer, I didn't cover this. An engineer's competency is the exact opposite of the architect's. See, the engineer is a builder. So while the cloud architect designs, presents, and sells, Lady Godiva, the cloud engineer needs to build and performance tune. So while the cloud architect, I just talked about business and design skills, the cloud engineer is going to be about networking skills, the same ones that I talked about for others, data center skills, the same ones that I talked about for others, but also the cloud engineer is going to be hands-on, which means the cloud engineer is going to need to have a strong Linux knowledge, not for the architect, the engineer. The cloud engineer is going to be writing some code, specifically Python scripts constantly to automate. They'll also be writing some bash shell scripts to automate for the cloud engineer. Now, the cloud engineer also, realistically speaking, will have to know some Terraform or infrastructure as code. And the cloud engineer is going to need to know all the idiosyncrasies of everything for extreme performance tuning. So, if you're one of my students in class, it'll be easy because you'll be able to do the class designs completely on your own. But if you're not, come to the interview thing today and see if you can answer these interview questions. And if you can, you're ready to be cloud hired. So that's why we do these, and it'll give you very good diagnostic information. If not, you'll know where your gaps are to learn too. Please join us. It's completely free. That's the point. After you learn the cloud, if you were to pick between AWS or Azure cert per your recommendation, only get one. Do you recommend one over the other? That's the point. It doesn't care. Nobody's going to hire you for a certification. Nobody, ever. The whole point of a certification is to get an interview. What happens with 99% of the certified people? They go on an interview, and on the interview, it's clear they don't know anything. And Sorry about that. We went over to our backup internet connection. Apparently, this is why you can't have just a single internet service provider. AT&T goes down, now we're up on Verizon. See, I wouldn't use a single cloud, and I wouldn't recommend a single internet service provider either. So we'll be back on screen very quickly. So going back to this, nobody's going to hire you for passing a certification. They're going to hire you for knowledge. So the only reason we say get an AWS or an Azure one is they're the two biggest ones. So learn the cloud and then realize that this certification is just something so basic. It's a checkoff list. It's the icing on the cake. So if you were asking, it's like basically asking me, I'm going to go on a job interview. Do I put on an Armani suit or a Canali suit or a Zegna suit? They're all fine. It's totally irrelevant. It doesn't matter. So learn the cloud. Learn the cloud, get absolutely wonderful and terrific in the cloud. And then after that, pick any certification. You'll be able to do it in a day or two anyway, because they're that simple when you actually know the cloud. It's that basic. Don't worry about it. So no recommendations of one over the other. It's like saying, Penn State versus Temple University. Doesn't matter. Now, if you're going to get a CCIA, I'd say that's like going to Harvard. Yeah, that stands out. But for these cloud certs, it's a 500-page book to do it versus like 75,000 pages of reading for a CCIA. It's just a checkoff list. Gotcha. So if you guys have some questions, please ask us in the chat box. We've got lots of things that we can tell you and to kind of help you. Now, Deepa Alice has a question as a nurse, something I've got a lot of expertise about. Deepa Alice, as a former nurse, how can you compare the stress levels of a nurse and solution architect? You heard working in these big tech companies is extremely demanding. I am considering quitting due to stress. So Deepa, here's what I would consider a nurse's life like. Stress, 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 and burnout. When you're a nurse, you are abused by the patients, you are abused by the doctors. Heck, you can be abused by the nurse practitioners, the physician's assistants, and the patient's family. It is the absolute most stressful job that I ever had. Now, Deepa, I was a paramedic for a couple of years. I became a registered nurse, and then I became a nurse practitioner because I hated nursing so much because it was the most stressful job I ever had in the entire life. In fact, on my second day of being a nurse, I said to my wife, I don't ever want to do this. This is the most stressful job I ever had. So I went straight from being a nurse to being a nurse practitioner with zero experience. I got out of that ER on my third day. I absolutely hated it. Then I became a nurse practitioner, and I would say it was moderately stressful. Nothing like being a nurse. And then Deepa, I went to tech. Oh my God! It was like I got paid for my hobby. Instead of going into the hospital and have somebody scream at me, I went in and somebody said, here, Mike, would you like a coffee or something to drink? I did meet with somebody, and the next thing I realized, we were at Morton's for steaks, or Smith & Wolinski for seafood. And I'd meet with a client as an architect, and I'd get sushi. And then we'd have some sake or Japanese wine. And then later that day, I'd go to a meeting for which I was treated with respect and dignity and decency. I'd go to the next meeting for which I was treated with career and with respect and dignity. And then we'd go out to a nice dinner, and we'd be drinking $150 bottles of wine, and we'd be taking shots from a $500 bottle of scotch like Macallan 25, and that was the work. Now, Deepa, when I first left, I worked for WorldCom, which was my first tech job. I was a senior network engineer and then the lead architect inside of 6 months after tech. Smoothest, simplest, silkiest job I've absolutely ever had in my entire life. 2. Next job I had, I worked on Wall Street, which is the highest stress environment you'll ever have. How stressful was this, Deepa? Well, at 6 p.m., we got to take the limousine or car service home every single day. And what did people do around 5:30? We all got a cocktail on the company. We had some dinner on the company. 7 o'clock at night, we got to take the limousines home. It was a really stressful job, let me tell you. And then I worked at another company right after that. I went to a company called Riverstone. That was a busy job. I worked some long hours. But I'd leave my house in New Jersey. I'd go to London, give a presentation. I'd go to by, give a presentation. And you know what? It was pretty smooth and pretty simple. So I will tell you, the most stressful thing I've ever seen in my life is nursing. That's why I was a nurse for about 2 days, went to school to become a nurse practitioner. While I was in school to become a nurse practitioner, I realized tech was my dream and went straight into tech. Now, I occasionally volunteer practicing medicine as a nurse practitioner because I kind of like it. And, kind of keep that there. So, it's up to you. But I'm going to tell you this, Deepa. When I left tech, medicine for tech, and nursing for tech, and then internal medicine for tech, it was the best thing that I've ever done. Deepa, well, I love working with healthcare providers and turning them into architects or engineers, but I prefer turning healthcare providers into architects because it's a lot easier for me to get an architect, a nurse, or a doctor, or a cloud architect job than it is a cloud engineer job as their first job. And here's the reason why. As a nurse, we're taught therapeutic communication. Now, I don't know who made up that silly name, but it's emotional intelligence, which is the biggest predictor of your career success. As a nurse, we have to diffuse violent situations. We have to give bad news. We have to stay calm under pressure. And when you can do that in your tech career, wow, you're like years ahead of everybody else in the competition. So it's that emotional intelligence and those communication skills. Now, as a nurse, I might say, titrate a nitro drip to a systolic BP of 110. And you have to think about what's going on. I didn't just give you something and say, just do this. You thought about it. Now, as a nurse, people think the doctor, nurse practitioner, physician assistant writes the plan for the patient. And sure, patient comes admitted to the hospital. I do a history of physical exam. I write orders. The nurse is carried out until it's 2 o'clock in the morning. And I got a call from the nurse that says, Mike, the patient's in SVT. I would like to give an amiodarone or something like this. And I say, yeah, whatever you need to do, just go ahead and do it. They already know the plan and they suggest the plan. So again, that's architecture. Now, when you're a nurse and the family comes in and they tell you all the stuff that they want, and you're putting together a plan for them, and then you realize that the internal medicine never consulted cardiology or never consulted this or never consulted this, you're going to suggest it. So again, you're doing architecture in the job. I actually learned architecture by practicing internal medicine, Deepa. Here's why. When I was doing internal medicine and somebody would come into the office and they'd say, my throat hurts. And I'd say, all right, what makes your throat better? And they'd say, this, and this. What makes your throat worse? And I'd say, we'll do that. And then I'd say, can I examine you? And they'd say, yes. And I'd take an otoscope and look in their ears, their nose, their throat. I'd listen to their heart, listen to their lungs. I'd then make a diagnosis and a plan. Now, an architect meets with the client, asks about their business goals, their business pain points, their business challenges, like a history. Then they do a physical examination by bringing in some engineers to baseline the systems. And then after that, make a diagnosis or hypothesis. And then after that, they build a plan. So doctor interview a patient, architect interview a client, doctor asks some questions, architect asks some questions, doctor do a physical exam, architect do a physical exam, doctor make a diagnosis, architect make a diagnosis, doctor make a plan called their prescription, probably amoxicillin, 500 milligrams 4 times a day if they're not allergic to penicillin or have no contraindications. That might be a good plan for that pharyngitis. Architect build a plan called an architecture, so it's the same job. Deepa, Alice, there's no comparison. Being in tech is easy. So Deepa, it's about what's hard to you. And here's what I mean by this. I have reflex sympathetic dystrophy, 5 herniated discs, 2 torn rotator cuffs, labral tears in both hips, and arthritis that's so bad I need 2 knee replacements, and they can't even do it because of the condition I have called reflex sympathetic dystrophy. To me, that's everyday life. Every once in a while, someone comes to my house and they're like, Mike, I got a little cut on my finger, and I look at their little boo-boo and say, you'll be fine. But to them, it's extreme pain. To me, that's nothing. But the point is, it's perception. So people that think tech is demanding, it's not. Now, the only time Deepa, Alice, tech will be demanding, and there will be a time, there's 2 ways you can manage your tech career. You can become really great at your job and truly master your job and do just your job and be an expert guidance, and it will be a very good, relaxed, smooth job. Or You can do, which is the most common tech career mistake. I'm going to get certified in everything. I'm going to learn everybody else's job. And you know what happens then? People get put trying to do 30 or 40 different people's jobs, and they don't know how to do any of it anyway. And that's why neurologists don't become cardiologists, and they don't become orthopedic surgeons or rheumatologists, because you can't learn that many different things. So, Deepa Alice, if you learn your career and you learn it well, I personally think it'll be the best experience you've ever had. I recently had a mental health tech, and she just got her first cloud architect job at a big bank, and she's excited as can be. When I talk to my graduates and students, they're like, this is the best job they ever had. One of my students, Delray Bad, is coming to visit me in Florida this weekend again. He is so excited with his new cloud security architect job. I think once every other day he sends me a message about how grateful and excited it is and how much he loves being an architect, because he used to be an EMT. He was like, learning as an EMT was hard and stressful. He's like, I can't believe I get paid to do this. He loves his job. He loves it. He's excited to be there, and he's doing great work. So I think it's the best job in the world. So please bring me some questions so I can help you build your best career. Kennedy, is pursuing a DevOps career worth it when compared to a cloud engineer? Kennedy, if you're interested in DevOps, then it's a good career. I personally don't train it because I feel DevOps engineers should all be software developers first, because it's really a software development career. So if you like DevOps and you like automation, yeah, this is a good career. And if you like coding, yeah, this is a good career. And if you enjoy infrastructure as code, yeah, this is a good career. And if you're more on that development side where you're going to be thinking about Kubernetes clusters and things, then yeah, this is a good career. It's not a career that I would enjoy. But I'm not a software developer. And I hate to code. I took a 2-day coding class 20 years ago, and it was the worst experience of my life. I don't ever want to do it again. I don't know which I disliked more, being a nurse or coding. It's I'm not sure. At least as a nurse, I felt like I was making people's lives better. So even though I hated doing the job, I still felt good at the end of the day. Coding was torture for me. I mean, pure torture. I'd rather be waterboarded than have to code. But we all have different things that we're good with. I've been in martial arts. I've been hit a lot to get used to pain. I would rather that than have to code. Personally, it's less torture to me. But everybody likes things, and some people love to code. I got a buddy that loves to code and does magical coding things. It's beautiful. I have another friend, she does magical coding things, and she also loves it. So the DevOps career is a great career if you like coding and software development. I'm going to tell you this right now. Don't think you build a DevOps career by passing a DevOps professional certification on AWS. No. You need good software development skills. You need good DevOps skills off of the cloud. All those standardized DevOps tools off of the cloud. And then you learn Terraform, and you learn it well, and you master it, because that's half of the job. And then you make sure that all the tools, whether it be Jenkins, Spinnaker, Git, all those traditional DevOps tools that you know. And then you learn DevOps on the cloud. And yes, it is a very good career. Not one that I train, but it's definitely a very good career, and I can recommend it. Great question, Chris. Please ask some questions in the chat box. Beanie Adam, you're from the Netherlands. The salaries are not so high. How can you apply for a job working in the U.S. from a distance, and which kinds of jobs are mostly working from home? Benny, the salaries in the Netherlands are relatively high compared to most parts of the world. They're not high like they are in the U.S., which is pretty sad because it's a very expensive place to live compared to the U.S. But there's a lot of things in the way that things are structured there which makes it that way. You can get work from home jobs anywhere in the world. Somebody asked me a year ago to support a client in Japan, and they wanted me to stay up Japanese hours. I called my best friend in India and said, would you like the job instead? It was a decent paying job. They wanted to pay $300,000 a year for somebody remote. So I called my buddy in India because, I can't stay up at night. I like to sleep at night. And quite frankly, it was not what I was interested in. But that's the key. So the point is yes, you can, but it's an immigration thing. So you got to go through immigration attorneys to really deal with these things. But, I've got people in the Netherlands that are going to do fine. There are people in England that are getting great jobs, people in Europe that are getting great jobs, people all over the world that are getting great jobs. So the point is be great at what you do. I mean, truly, truly great at what you do. And when you're great at what you do, the world will come to you. So, Benny, become great. Build your brand. Start writing some thought leadership documentation. Show the world how good you are. The world's going to come to you. Benny, when we do our LinkedIn and resume workshop on our students, they get 5+ people each. I mean, some of them, I've got one student, Robert, who gets 20 requests per day. He's maximized LinkedIn. I got some that get 3 to 15 interview requests per week. So it's not that you need to apply for the jobs. You need to build your brand and make the world to come to you. And, for example, Delray Batt, who recently got 3 cloud architect jobs, he applied for 0 of them. 0. Now, in our cloud architect career development program, we built his resume and his LinkedIn profile with him in a class. We taught him how to do it. And then he got bombarded. He had 3 offers. And he picked the one that he chose the most, not the highest paying, the one that he wanted the best because he was that great. So if you have the right brand, the salary thing works itself out. Heck, 20 some years ago, we CCIEs were getting paid $110 an hour at 60 hours a week. Average network engineer salary was $60,000 a year or less because tech people used to get paid little. And yet we CCIEs were earning $300,000 a year. And why was that? What was so special about the CCIEs? Well, Benny, it was 2 things. One was when I took my CCIE exam, I remember there were so many cool things that I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn voice over IP. I knew that was the future. I wanted to learn IPsec tunneling because I knew that was the future for VPNs. I wanted to learn all this cool stuff. But my CCIE was routing and switching. So if it was not OSPF or EIGRP or RIP or BGP, we didn't need to know it. If it wasn't related to switching or spanning tree, we didn't need to know it. If it wasn't related to a certain set of very basic standardized protocols, it wasn't on the exam. And by having an exam that forced 75,000 pages of reading in such a small area, what happened is we had to be so focused. And in the process of being so focused on our careers, we had to learn just what it took to really master our skills. Now that, when we were done, that created something very special. And this was when the CCIE exam lasted 2 days, and everybody failed it before Cisco made it much more friendly and turned into a single-day exam that much many people passed. It forced us to focus. So, well, I consider my CCIE to be my introductory level certification because it was after that, that's when I got to be put on all the big projects. That's when I got to really learn. So 20 some years ago when I did my CCIE, that was my intro to networking. People talk about a CCNA or a CCNP. All that stuff's intro level. The CCIE is an intro level certification. When you consider that intro level and that is your level of skill, there is nobody that's not interested in you. Meaning my architects are so good. They're so good that the world comes to them. So be great at what you do. I mean, truly great at what you do. And the world will come to you. Don't be average. Don't be mediocre. Don't be a jack of all trades whose knowledge is spread all up, but you don't really know anything about anything. Master your career. Master your brand. Make your brand so clear and so strong that the world knows who you are. Everybody knows I'm a cloud architect. No one anywhere else in the world. So keep that in the back of your mind. We all need to master our career. And why is it so there? And how do you maximize your salary? Because look, I know people in all these countries that you can imagine earning hundreds of thousands of euros per year because they mastered their career. And there's extreme demand when you're an expert. So don't get 10x AWS certified. Focus on the things that matter. Master your career. Now, Beanie, what determines whether you get paid a lot versus a little in tech? 2 things. It's the depth of your knowledge, and Jimmy Henry will tell you how to get out of healthcare, no problem. But just bear with us. But it's the depth of your knowledge, and it's your communication skills, it's your leadership skills, it's your sales skills, it's your executive presence, it's your emotional intelligence, it's your business acumen, it's your CXO relevancy, it's your gravitas, or je ne sais quoi, or executive presence. That's the difference. Now, Beanie, how much of a difference is it? If I told you right now, that in traditional low-paying careers, just standard low-paying careers, emotionally intelligent people earn $29.6 thousand more per year than others. If I told you that soft skills training in general raises someone's salary by approximately 30%. So even in Europe, you take a job that's 110,000 euros and you add 30,000 euros for emotional intelligence training, and you add an additional 30% for soft skills training. Now you're dealing with 60 to 70,000 euros more per year. And while that may not sound that much on the surface, even though it really is, over 30 years, that's 2.7 million euros. So where are you going to focus? Become great at your job. Don't spread yourself so thin. Build your brand, build your brand, build your brand. When everybody else is focused on the tech, realize there's billions of techies out there, and that's not the focus. The focus is what can you use the tech for to transform the business. Learn how to make the tech solve business problems. Now you're a 400,000 euro a year person in the Netherlands. That's the difference. Now, granted, you got a lot of taxes over there, hugely, but the point is that's what it's going to take. That separates the 70,000 euro architect from the 400,000 euro architect. It's not about the tech. Even Steve Jobs said it 20 years ago. He was really thing, and he said, great brands don't talk about the tech. Nike doesn't talk about the shoes. Apple doesn't talk about the computer. They talk about what can the computer enable. That's the secret. That's the secret. That's the difference. So that's how you maximize the careers. And then the world will come to you. Jimmy, I actually removed Cloud Architect from my LinkedIn profile. I had 15 requests to interview for big jobs all over the world every single day of the week. It doesn't say Cloud Architect on my LinkedIn profile anymore for that reason. So great question. And feel free to ask more. Hi, Mike, you're a DevOps engineer and want to be a cloud architect. What's your best advice on what you should do to facilitate the transition? Here's what I need you to remember. DevOps engineering and architecture are not even related to each other. So it's kind of like you said, I'm a nurse. How do I become an architect? And it's going to be the same answer I would give you. But because you're a DevOps engineer, you have two challenges. One is you've got some tech skills, which is purely advantageous. And two, nobody wants to hire an architect that's a DevOps engineer. So what do we do with this? Now, the first thing is we have to show the world you are not a DevOps engineer. And here's the reason why. A DevOps engineer is focused on automation and coding and tech. Infrastructure as code. A cloud architect is focused on digital transformation, not tech. A cloud architect never touches the technology. The DevOps engineer is hands-on. So what you have to do is as follows. Change your brand, substantially change your resume, which we can teach you how to do, and learn the right skills. So while the DevOps engineer is all about configuring and coding and building and automating, the cloud architect's job is all about designing, presenting, and selling. Where the DevOps engineer focuses on deploying the technology or automating it, the cloud architect focuses on how do I optimize the performance of the business. So they're exact opposites. So the first thing you need to do is learn business. So what we're going to talk about is the business, then the tech, then the branding, because it's a threefold change to get you out of DevOps engineering into being an architect. And if you took our cloud architect career development program, we could easily get you there, do that transition quite simply because we're experts on this. But the first thing is you need to learn the business piece, which means you need to know how to sell. Now, we're not talking about how to sell a car. We're talking about how to sell a multi-million or billion-dollar solution. So we're talking about building business cases, negotiating big deals, obtaining customer requirements, delivering sales presentations. But we're going to be writing up architecture documents and thought leadership documents. So we have to become experts at executive writing. Now, we also, as architects, need to be what's called CXO relevant. You are going to start with the executives that are going to give you the business problems. You're going to map these business problems to technology solutions. So you must understand business first, but you must understand what the CEO cares about versus the CIO versus CTO versus CFO. Because if you talk to the CFO the same way you talk to the CEO, you get escorted out of the room and your replacement thanks you. So the key is you need to know CXO relevant. Now you need to have something called executive presence. Now what is executive presence? I'll show you with and without it. BGP is a path vector routing protocol that uses TCP port 179 for inter-domain multicast routing. If you say that in a meeting with the CEO, you are escorted out of the room, your job is gone, and your replacement says thank you. Now, if you said to the CEO, look, we're going to use this routing protocol called BGP. BGP is based upon TCP port 179. And the reason we use it is to exchange information between entities so we can get your traffic to where it needs to go in a secure, scalable manner. Now they're interested. But we have presence in one. Now, when we deal as architects, it's all about developing your emotional intelligence because we got to get information from people. Now, when we get information from somebody and they're moving from the data center to the cloud, half the reason they're doing it is to lay off people because they might need 1,000 people on their tech staff for a big bank. And on the cloud, they might need 200. So you got to get information from people that might get laid off or fired or made redundant. So you got to have some emotional intelligence to get there. And if you're like me, when you know that's going on, I like to retrain the people and find them new jobs where they can be successful, ideally within the same company. Now, as an architect, you're going to be presenting at conferences, writing something called thought leadership documentation, working booths at conferences, writing sales documents called white papers, responding to RFIs, requests for information, RFPs, requests for proposal, and RFQs, requests for quote or pricing. Now, mind you, as architects, we don't touch the tech, but we design the tech. So while in DevOps engineering, you can know that stuff, Jenkins and Spinnaker and code, for us, it's we have to migrate the stuff from the network and the data center to the cloud. So what does that mean? It means we must know the data center and the network and the cloud, and not the silly names of a service. So I need you to understand, and of course, it's all covered in our Cloud Architect Career Development Program. Server virtualization and what it is and how it accomplishes it. Containers and container orchestration. Storage area and network, such as block storage, object storage, and file storage, and really how to work with them deeply. I need you to understand databases and business applications such as ERP systems, CRM systems, unified communications, and how they impact business performance. I need you to understand next generation firewalls and IDS, IPS systems, and VPNs and concentrators because you're going to be designing this. I need you to learn BGP, ideally some interior gateway knowledge, some IP addressing design, subnetting work, supernetting work definitely needs to be there. You definitely need to understand switching, which means VLANs and VLAN tagging, VLAN trunking, link aggregation group, port channel, ether channel, those kind of things. Say virtual router redundancy protocol for your WAN links, making sure that you've got constant connectivity. So these are the kind of things that you would need to know. On top of that, you need to understand which technologies, WAN technologies, whether you're going to be using an IPsec tunnel, an SSL-based tunnel, whether you're going to be using a private line, Ethernet from PLS, software-defined networking, or SASE, for example, for your wide area network. And then you're going to be thinking about, do you have overlapping addresses? Did one company buy another company, for example, and you need to mitigate the IP addressing overlap for a problem with NAT. That's not just going to the internet. So these are kind of the technology things that you're going to have to understand, that you need to know. So first, we've got the business, and then we've got the tech. Now, the next part of architecture is the integration of the system. The architect is kind of like the conductor in an orchestra. And, the reason we have to train an architect differently than an engineer, knowing how to play a violin or the flute, which I think is really cool, by the way, does not teach you how to conduct an orchestra. The same way, if I were to train a building architect that was designed the Burj Al Arab in Dubai, some big, beautiful hotel that looks like a sailboat. It's gorgeous, by the way. Spent some time in it. Love it. I'm amazing. Teaching that person how to use a hammer or a screwdriver is not helpful to them. So there's that. So we need to teach design versus configuration. And the last thing we need to do is transform your profile and your resume from an engineer to an architect. Because nobody wants a techie as an architect. They want an executive that also knows the tech. So one of my students recently got hired, and in the interview they said, look, Mike, I'm looking for a sales guy or girl that wears the lab coat. So a salesperson that knows the science. That's the best job of an architect, which we design, present, and sell. So all the tech stuff you've done as an engineer, we have to tune it. If you use Terraform for infrastructure as code, instead of saying use Terraform, we need to translate the business impact. Deployed multi-cloud solution with Terraform, which saved, etc. When you say that, talk about saved 12 weeks over traditional with this process. Design new software release cycles, which reduced error defects by 12% or whatever the thing is. Design new automation process that saved 4,000 employee hours with a net effective savings to the company of this many dollars. So that's the kind of thing we do in our Cloud Architect program, is they teach you how to think like an architect. And when you think like an architect, then we show you how to do your resume. And oh, by the way, we're doing a free resume session Friday this week. And also, if you join us tomorrow on the How to Get Your First Cloud Job webinar, I will go over everything that's necessary for you to transition careers, and I think it's going to be a wonderful experience for you. But that's really what it's about. It's about learning the business. It's about learning the actual tech, and then it's learning how to apply the tech to solve business problems. You do that, wow, you're going to have an incredible cloud architecture career. Incredible architecture career. That's how I would recommend you do it. But if you'd like to work with us, we'd love to get you cloud hard, but definitely attend tomorrow's free workshop, and also to attend today's completely free interview session. So you'll get to see the kind of questions we would ask an architect. Giovanni, is there a former website where you can volunteer and build on hands-on experience with cloud architecture? I have years of solution architecture experience, but no cloud experience. Giovanni, if you have real solution architecture experience, you realize that you don't touch the tech. So if you worked at Cisco as a solution architect, for example, and you're designing somebody's WAN or somebody's routing, you're not touching it. So Giovanni, that's the whole point. Hands-on experience will never get you hired as an architect, ever. It's a job of designing, presenting, and selling. So it's not about hands-on experience. I can't ask somebody to volunteer and design a network for me, or volunteer to design my cloud architecture for me. They make one bad design and the business is out of business. That's why we have the Cloud Architect Career Development Program, where you can do these things in a safe space, where you can learn end-to-end system design. Now, granted, I give my students what I call real labs. For example, my students design and build their own cloud from scratch. And while everybody else is worried about simple things like setting up a virtual machine, I don't. That's silly. I mean, I have my students, build it in the data center and set up their environments in the data center, and then build their own clouds and their own Active Directory servers, and then federating their cloud to the Active Directory servers. That's how you can do it. So yes, I have 2 programs for that, and you can get the experience with us. And I've got students getting hired every single day with experience and with no experience. And whether it was Daniel Bosu, who was 20 years old when he got hired by JP Morgan Chase, I think he just turned 21, and his last job was working at Nordstrom before us. Or Ivan Tamba, that was in college, and AWS waited 5 months for him to graduate college to hire him after they interviewed because they liked him so much. Or Coyote with no experience. Or Jennifer, who had a psychology background. or Jermaine, who was selling landscaping gear, we can get them all hired by giving them the right training. But understand, it's not about hands-on training for the architect. It's about your knowledge of designing, presenting, and selling. That's the skill. Have you sold billion-dollar deals yet, Giovanni? If not, you need training. Have you done executive briefings with your company? If not, you're going to need training. Have you built an ROI model for $1 billion solution? If not, you're going to need training for cloud architecture. Do you present at conferences in your current job? If not, you're going to need serious training. Have you been published in magazines? If not, you're going to need some training. This is architect work. So it's not about getting hands-on experience. That's getting engineering experience. You need design experience in the cloud. We have a system for that. It's called the Cloud Architect Career Development Program. But no matter what you do, it's not about configuring the cloud. Configuring does not teach you how to design. Give a building architect a hammer and then ask them how to design a hotel. They're not going to give a construction worker a hammer. They can't design a hotel. Give an airline mechanic an airplane and they can't fly it. So it's not about hands-on experience. The job is design, present, and sell. So you need to become an expert with design, present, and sell, Giovanni. That's the way to do it. Our program does it. We do labs, and the only reason we do labs is because I want to show people you actually have experience. But as an architect, and Giovanni, the last 100 plus architects that we've graduated, I spoke to, and there's a lot more than that. We get together periodically and ask them, hey, when did you touch the tech? And they say, Mike, I've never touched the tech. Hey, do you code? Mike, I don't touch the tech for anything other than Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, or Excel, just like you told me. How do you spend your day? I go to meetings. I take people on lunches and dinners and drinks. And if you're working as a solution architect, that's probably what you're doing here. It's kind of that role. So if that's your current job and you're really designing, presenting, and selling, it's the same job. You should have a very easy time of it once you know the network and data center things. Having said that, if you're working as more in engineering where you're coding and configuring, you're going to need that architecture training of designing, presenting, and selling. Not about getting hands-on. It's about learning design. That's the job. How does it work together? How do we design our demilitarized zones? That's something we do. How do we design the enterprise-wide security? How do we design the organization's WAN? How do we deal with the 20,000 remote locations they have? How do we deal with increasing revenue? How do we improve employee productivity? How do we reduce error defects? That's the job, not hands-on anything. That's engineering. Chris, or let's go to the next one. John, can you train as a Devops engineer, get a job to save enough money, enroll our program, and get the training to be a cloud architect because you're currently unemployed? So John, you can do anything you desire, but if you spend the next 2 years trying to become a DevOps engineer, and then after that, you decide to take our program, it's going to take you years to get to your goal. So, it's up to you. Now, I'm not going to tell you to do what I did. When I did my Cisco Certified Internet Expert, I couldn't afford it at the time. We're going back a good 20 plus years, over 20 years. And when I did my CCIA, John, here's what it cost. I had just graduated college, so I still had student loans. And I got 2 new credit cards. And I'm literally not joking. I spent almost $40,000 20-some years ago on becoming a Cisco Certified Internet Expert. I rented a rack. It was from a company called CC Bootcamp. And it was $200 every Saturday and Sunday. This is 20 years ago, so it's like $600 in today's world. And I did that for over 6 months straight. So think of it this way, $1,600 a month for 6 months straight. I attended multiple training sessions, which were all $5,000 to $10,000 for the week's boot camp. I bought almost 100 books, and each one was about $50 back then. And there was a bunch of hardware that I bought. All in all, it was about $40,000 because I was underemployed and I just got out of school and had a lot of debt from healthcare careers. And after being a CCIA, I paid it off in 2 months. So what I did is I spoke to my wife and we did a business case together. And she said, Mike, this is the salary of someone here. This is the cost of education. This is nothing compared to the net result. So I financed it and got funding. All in all, John, I've spent between me and the companies that I've worked for, I've spent about $250,000 on education. So what I tried to do here, John, was create a program that anyone, anywhere in the world could afford, that they wouldn't have to take on the $40,000 of debt like I did to build a new career. And honestly, that's what it costs in general to do this, to do it properly. I know that nobody can get it with the Udemy courses and certifications on their own without something more. So that's why I trained it. And the reason I created the basic version of this program, John, and I didn't want to. I wanted to keep everything live, so I got to talk to my people across the world. I created the basic version for the following reason. At 30% off, our basic version is roughly $350. In the US, the average cloud architect earns $600 a day, so it's half of a single day's pay. In parts of the world where the average cloud architect earns a lot less than that, it's still affordable. It's challenging, but it's affordable. And then we came up with a payment plan that made it, I think, like $140, for 3 different payments. I don't exactly know what it comes down to with the discount, but something like that. So that's why we did it. So it's up to you. The sooner you get properly trained, the sooner you'll be able to be hireable. When I went to Temple University, there was a sign on the wall. And John, I grew up very poor. And about 20 years ago, 25, 30 years ago, I was in school. And my tuition was just over $8,000 a year, undergraduate. And I was earning $8.50 an hour by being an EMT, working 50 to 60 hours a week. And it killed me. I worked 2 jobs to get through it, but at the end of it, guess what? I had a great career. So you can do whatever you desire, but in general, my advice is to train for the job you want and not somebody else's. And do whatever you can to financially support yourself along the way. Me, I worked as an EMT, I worked as a paramedic, I worked as a nurse on ambulances, taking people back and forth to the hospital. My family had a restaurant, I worked at the restaurant. If it was a snowstorm, I would shovel snow. You name it, I was trying to find some way to pay for tuition. And there's that. So I get it, John. That's why we came up with that program, to try and make it as cheap as possible. And sometimes people buy our basic program and get 3/4 of the way there and say, I want the full one, and then they upgrade for the cost difference. And sometimes people just get hired on the basic program. But anything that gets you to your goal, I'm supportive of. But as a rule, far better to train for the job you want than somebody else's job and try and learn it again later. But whatever you need to do, I truly respect that. Take as much of the free training as you can on our channel right now. I do a lot of it. Come to all the free training. If you can, try to find some kind of sponsorship or help, even if it's the basic program. I really want to get you to your goals, John. I really do. And the reason I came up with the basic program was as follows. I like to tell people to build your own cloud. I really do. And initially, I had a video out on how everybody should build their own cloud. This was a couple of years ago. And in those days, it was cheap because it was about $1,000 to buy a server to build your own cloud. So I tell everybody to buy their own cloud server. But what happened is I started to see some rumblings in the supply chains that were good there. And I went, uh-oh. So I went and bought a tremendous number of servers because I saw the writing on the wall. Then we had the part shortages and things like that, and those basic servers became $2,000 minimum to be able to do the labs that we're talking about, because we needed Xeon systems with at least 16 cores and 128 gigs of DRAM. And then I realized that it was $2,000 for someone just to do our labs without even getting the education. And I bundled that server and use of that server and those labs into this training program to make it that anybody anywhere in the world could get it and build their career. So that's my recommendation. Let's do the basic program. But whatever you have to do to support yourself, I get it. I make no judgments. I worked 3 jobs while in college. I'm not joking. And I did what I had to. So do what you have to. Keep your dreams alive, John. Never quit until you get to your goals. Ask questions from who you can along the way. But make sure when you ask questions, John, you're asking someone that's been in the job, not someone that's struggling to get there. And John, train, train, train. You'll get there. Please keep your questions coming. I want to do anything I can to truly help you. Style Plus, what's the simplest way to cloud computing to a newbie? It's very simple. All you are is renting access to someone else's network and data center. That's it. Kind of like when you go to a hotel and you stay in a room that's not yours for a couple days. That's it. You're renting access to someone's network and a data center. And Style Plus, why is it so complicated? The cloud providers have spent millions and millions of dollars trying to make it sound complicated. All it is a data center, and they rent you access to virtual access to it. That's it. That's all it is. That's all it is. Jimmy Henry, you have no experience in tech, but want to transition out of healthcare. Jimmy, I understand. I've done it myself. What's the difference between your cloud engineering program and your cloud architect program? Complete opposites, Jimmy. And here's the reason, and I'll answer this question. So a cloud architect designs, presents, and sells, and we train you to design, present, and sell. Cloud engineers build. They're the construction workers of the cloud. So in our cloud architect program, we teach you how to be an architect. Now, if you're a healthcare person, I strongly recommend cloud architecture. Now, if you're a healthcare person, you can do cloud engineering, but you're going to be much more aligned to cloud architecture. And here's the reason why. I'm a healthcare provider. I'm a nurse practitioner. I practiced internal medicine for a while. Before that, I was a nurse. Before that, I was a paramedic. And before that, I was an EMT. So I've been in healthcare for a long time. But here's the thing. In healthcare, we're always communicating, right? Nobody comes in, at least from my world, with a piece of paper that says, I have congestion heart failure. I mean, we get their history. But they don't come in and say, I have congestion heart failure. I have bipedal edema, and I have rails 50% up the lungs. You know, they don't come in with that. We got to go figure it out ourselves. So in medicine, in nursing, in physical therapy, in pharmacy, in any of these careers, we got to talk to people. In most every one of these careers, we're trained to be emotionally intelligent or therapeutic communications. In every one of these things, it's multidisciplinary teams, We got medical, we got pharmacy, we got respiratory, we got PT, we got nuclear medicine or whatever's going on. It's a team. This is why I like architecture careers for healthcare people. So then it's about selling the patients on their plan. I write a Coumadin prescription to someone because they have AFib and I don't want them getting a stroke. And they come in and say, hey, I hear that's rat poison, I don't want to take it. And we have to convince them to take the medications that they need so they don't die. So there's some sales in healthcare. Now in healthcare, it's all about the coordination of the patient journey. They went here, here, here. So what is architecture, Jimmy Henry? It is meeting with a client, asking about their goals and business requirements, and then creating a plan to solve them. That's what architects do. Same thing as a doctor. Meet with a client, ask some questions, do an exam, make a diagnosis, and build a plan. That's the architect job. And most healthcare people are there. The architect job, we never touch the tech. We don't code anything. We don't configure anything. We design it, present it, and sell it just like we do with our patients. So the Cloud Architect program teaches all of that. And of course, we teach you the technology so you know how to design it. And architecture is the recipe. It's like what a care coordinator would do. Make sure everybody gets all the things they need. Now, by comparison, Jimmy Henry, we've got the cloud engineer. The cloud engineer is the person that does it. So the cloud engineer is kind of like the nurse that is a cross between someone that's really smart in terms of having the deep knowledge, but also knows how to tune it. So when I tell the nurse, titrate a dobutamine drip for a systolic BP of 100, the nurse knows how to carry that out, just like a cloud engineer. But the cloud engineer is the hands-on person. They're the ones doing the work. We're the architects designing, presenting, and selling it. So in our cloud engineer program, we have to teach you how to code because that's what cloud engineers do. In our cloud engineer program, we've got to teach you how to configure. In our cloud engineer program, we've got to teach you Terraform or infrastructure as code. in the cloud engineer program, I still need to teach you all those network and data centers, but the focus is on the tech. And the architect program is focused on digital transformation. So because a cloud architect and a cloud engineer or careers are so different, a cloud architect is more like the doctor. The cloud engineer is more like the nurse that carries out the doctor's orders. And the cloud admin is kind of like the nursing assistant that does some repetitive tasks for the nurse. So Jimmy, I encourage you to get out of healthcare. I did it myself. And I did it for a much better life. And let me tell you, it's the best thing I have ever done. I feel like healthcare is work. Tech, it's like they pay me to play with toys. It's really incredible. So that's the difference, Jeremy. My cloud architect will make you a cloud architect, which is a business expert. It's an executive that's also mixed with a technology professional. It's 50-50. Cloud engineer program, 100% hands-on techie. You can do either, but I'm going to tell you this right now. Most medical people will have a much easier time getting a cloud architect job because they're already trained in it. And the cloud architect careers can pay 30 to 50% plus more. So you could do either. And I truly believe what you did yesterday has no bearing on what you do tomorrow. So if you love engineering, great. I encourage you to do it. But if you love architecture, great. You're already there. Now you need to learn the business elements and the tech, and you're there. But all those things that make architects, the soft skills, the therapeutic communication, the ability to gather information someone, to ask questions to get information of things that people are not used to. There are things that healthcare people are experts in. I have to ask people about smoking, drinking, using drugs. I got to ask them about certain habits they have that they might be embarrassed to talk about. That experience in healthcare makes you an incredible architect. Incredible. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. I think you are in an extremely, extremely good position to do whatever you like. And I've gotten people from healthcare to engineering. I've gotten them from healthcare to architecture. But let me tell you, that transition into architecture from healthcare is extremely smooth. Extremely smooth, because you've already got a lot of the harder skills to learn. Communication, eliciting information from people, managing expectations, delivering bad news, leading and coordinating many moving parts all over the place. And Jimi Henry, here's my favorite thing. Most healthcare people have a little bit of obsessive compulsive disorder. Most people in healthcare, which is great. And here's why. The nurse checks the patient records. Did I give the drug? Yes. They check a second time. Did I give the drug? Yes. Yeah, there you go. Okay. So a good architect double and triple checks. Did I miss anything? So Jimi Henry, welcome to our world. I encourage you to do it. I went from an EMT to a paramedic to a nurse practitioner. I would love to train you in anything you do. But either the architect or engineer will work, but I think the architect's best for you. Unless your goal is engineering, in which case that's your best for you. Great questions, and I'm thrilled you asked the question. Jay Jara, hello there. Thanks for hosting this Q&A. You want to transition from caution to tech. Is cloud architecture about designing solutions? Yes. Is cloud architecture related to programming? Not at all. So Jay Jara, you're in construction right now. Excellent, you're going to understand this. So here's the difference between construction and architecture. So Jay, let's say you've got a building architect. Let's say I went from cloud architect to building architect. I changed my caps. Now I'm a building architect, Mike the building architect. And let's say I took a trip to Dubai and I met with a sheikh, and the sheikh says, we're going to do some cool development. We're going to have the tallest building in the world. And we want it to be 2,000, 3,000 meters tall. Okay. And then they said, I want 6 helipads for some wealthy people that are coming. I want it to be on an island. I want to have the longest water slide in the world. I want to have 3 golf courses on it. And I want a pool that's chilled and beautiful. So they're the requirements. And the architect would then design the blueprint for this. And then once it's done, they hire a construction crew to go build it. Now you're working construction. Excellent. Realize the world is going from the person with the hammer the nail, the screwdriver, the machines to the person that's making the blueprint. So now let's talk about what is that? It's the design of the building. So Jay, when we design a building, right? We determine if it's going to be 2,000 meters tall, we need steel, right? Maybe we need some silk to make it look pretty, like the Burj Al Arab, because silk is extremely strong. Maybe we need a certain amount of cement. Maybe if we're going to build something on an island, we need to solidify the island. So the building architect is focused on how do you design that special building. The cloud architect is about how do you design the solution for the customer. So when we design a solution, it's just like the building architect. We talk about the things that are necessary. The building architect will think of the steel, right? They'll think of cement. They'll think of glass. And they'll build a blueprint that's got it all. But they never touch it. So a cloud engineer is roughly the equivalent of a construction worker. They're the people with the hammers and the nails that build our solutions. The cloud architect designs it. So all we design is blueprints. We don't do any programming. We're designing a blueprint. Now, Jay, what is the cloud? The cloud is a network and a data center that you rent. I'm going to say it again. The cloud is nothing more than an outsourced, rented network and a data center. So, Jay, I've got two choices. I can design my data center as follows. Buy my servers from Dell EMC, my storage from Dell EMC, my routers from Cisco, my firewalls from Cisco or Palo Alto or Checkpoint, for example. I contact Oracle and I get a database to use. And then I contact Cisco for my unified communications. And then I go to Salesforce for a CRM application. And the architect is putting together the blueprint for the technology. It has nothing to do with programming. It has nothing to do with configuring anything because that's construction. It is literally taking you from a construction worker to a building architect. And that's the thing. So designing solutions is really about how do you design the building. Now, what's the difference between a building architect and a cloud architect? Not that much. But a building architect designs a building based upon customer requirements. A cloud architect designs a technology blueprint to solve business challenges. Same job. The only thing that changes is what you're designing. Building architect designs building. Cloud architect designs the end-to-end cloud solution, which tech pieces do you go there? Jay Jarrett, let's put it together in one other example to make it clear what an architect does. Have you ever been to a symphony orchestra? I don't go very frequently, but every once in a while I love to see it. There's some conductor that's swinging things and waving their arms, and the musicians need to know they're playing their flutes and guitars and trombones. And, oh my God, it's incredible. Okay, but you got that conductor that's coordinating who does what. That's the architect. It's the facilitator. It's the leader of the solution. The same way the conductor brings in a team of the bass people, we bring in a team of engineers. So all we do is design blueprints. We could easily help you with our Cloud Architect Career Development Program, but now you know the difference. Architecture is just like what you're dealing with the architects that make the blueprints. Cloud engineering does coding. That is just like the same hammer. So architect, design, engineer, build. Good question for you. And I really want to kind of keep that in the back of our minds. Our architects design and our engineers actually build. Now, your building architects get no benefit from teaching them how to use the hammer or a screwdriver or a saw. It doesn't make them better architects. Likewise, the engineers need to be really good at engineering, less good at making blueprints because it's somebody else's job. So now you know the difference. And Chris, if you're here, if you can go to the next one. If not, I know my team may have stepped. Okay, perfect. MBWA Lambert, you think the security part is best to do with AWS security specialist or cloud security architect? You started your journey with an AWS course, but you're not still shunned. So MBWA Lambert, if your goal is security, do not waste your time with the AWS security specialist certifications. It has nothing to do with security. In fact, it's not even an intro to 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 a junior level security anything. And here's the reason. We are not an AWS security specialist. We're not an Azure security specialist. We're not a Google security specialist. We need to know security. And here's the subtle difference. I get an AWS firewall and their version of intrusion. And here's what I'm going to get notified. You've been hacked. You've been hacked. You've been hacked. You've been hacked. You get been hacked. And I'm going to get CloudWatch messages that told me I've been hacked. It's not a next generation firewall, which means getting told I've been hacked is great. I get notified at 3 o'clock in the morning I've been hacked. Now, if we don't use those AWS things or some of these other cloud proprietary things, and we deal with an enterprise security company like Palo Alto, and we use their firewall, instead of just telling us we've been hacked, something happens, it hits that next generation firewall, and it's a pattern. The firewall says, whoa, looks like we're being hacked. Stop it right now. So it's like having so instead of having a wall around the castle, and once the enemy gets past the wall, they've attacked the castle, the next generation firewall is kind of like having some knights behind the castle. So if anything gets through the firewall, it gets killed and you're safe. So I would encourage you never to think about being in AWS security anything. I focus on the cloud and focus on your customers. So don't waste any of your time with something silly like these AWS Advanced Security. I know the certification providers like to talk about it and like to sell you, but I don't want to sell you stuff that's not going to help you. I want to build your career. So learn security. Learn how to design your demilitarized zones. Learn an overall end-to-end encryption strategy. Learn data loss prevention. Trust me, none of that's covered in these silly certifications. Learn how to develop incident response procedures. Learn who to call and when things happen. Learn how to educate against social engineering. Learn how to educate against phishing campaigns. Learn about anti-malware systems. Learn about system hardening. Learn about security architectures. That makes you a cloud security architect. And the jobs are plentiful, 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 plentiful. But that's the key. It's not going to be covered in a certification. So what you got to realize is, here's what a certification is. It's the name of a service and how to configure that service. What a cloud architect configure? Zero. Now, MBUWA Lambert, if I go to my customer and I talk to them about WAF and Shield and CloudWatch, they'll laugh me out of the room. They're going to laugh at me. They're going to think I'm some proprietary, out to sell something and all that. I'm no longer a trusted advisor. An architect's supposed to be a trusted advisor. So what I really need to talk to the customer about is, look, we're going to run 2 versions of next generation firewalls. The reason we're going to use one from Palo Alto and one from Fortinet is as follows. We believe the Palo Alto firewall should stop it all. But if it doesn't, we're going to use the Cisco firewall. Now, the Palo Alto firewall uses adaptive in nature. The Cisco firewall uses adaptive in nature, but they use different heuristics. So what blocks on one might get past the other. So we're going to do 2 layers. Hey, wait. Now we've done our next generation firewalls. We probably, so it might look like this. Do we use a network load balancer, 2 next generation firewalls, a network load balancer, some more next generation firewalls? Do we put an IDS IPS system or not? Are we going to rely on the ones that are there already in the next generation firewalls? Beyond that, are we using a network access control list to protect the subnet? Beyond that, are we using a security group? Beyond that, what are we doing on the server? What kind of anti-malware protection? How are we locking that server down? What kind of host-based firewalls are we using? Are we encrypting our storage? What's that end-to-end storage encryption strategy look like? Are we encrypting things at rest? Okay, now we got all these logs coming in, or can we use those logs to create some event-driven security things? Yes, we probably can. Can we run some machine learning and AI on it? What kind of training do we need? That's security architect work, nothing that's covered in the AWS thing. And do you really think AWS is good enough? It's not. It's a great cloud. I love the AWS cloud, but 87% of customers are on more than one cloud. 97% want to be. So we're going to be dealing with Nutanix clouds, OpenStack cloud, the Azure cloud, the Google cloud, all the time. It's never just a single cloud anymore. So we can't focus on AWS. We have to focus on cloud. How do we solve our customers' problems? That's the secret. Get a bunch of AWS certifications, and not only you're not hireable because you look like a certification junkie, not an architect. And nobody wants a certification junkie, they want an architect. You want a security cert? Get a CISSP. And if you don't have 5 years experience, you get it and you're considered an associate until you do have the 5 years experience. But everybody's going to know you're past it. Do not waste your time with AWS Advanced any certification. They're too junior. And here's why. I'm going to put it in real context. The CCIE is 75,000 pages of reading. Chris, is it easy for you to share an average CCIE reading list easily? If so, great. If not, don't worry about it. The AWS Advanced Networking or Advanced Security is a 400-page book. It's nothing. It's nothing. It's not enough, and everybody knows it. So don't waste your time with it. Focus on the real. There you go. That's an average CCIE reading list. Just that. For one exam. This is depth of knowledge. The AWS Advanced Security is this. It's meaningless to an employer. This is what they're looking for. So like I say, learn your job, not somebody else's, and you will have a wonderful, wonderful career. Leib, what questions can I expect from a CTO? That's what we do in our training program. We teach CXO relevancy. So these would be the kind of questions we have here. This is a, what do you call it? This is a session on how do you build your career. That's what we do in our paid training. While we're at it, currently we have a 30% off coupon code off of all of our training. You know, we put free training out there for some of the tech pieces, but our specialty is we're executive architects, and we've got 25 years architecture experience. We're working on our 5th person with a master's degree right now inside of our organization. We have 3 MBAs on staff to make sure that we're CXO relevant. Actually, right now we have 4 MBAs, potentially somebody with a master's degree in economics and somebody else with a master's degree that are part of our business staff, just part of our business staff. And we've got a huge tech team too, and other people that are behind the scenes and customer service and lots of wonderful people, but that's what we do. So this is the kind of training that we do. This is part of our premium training. So make sure you get CXO relevancy training. You could take our Cloud Architect Career Development training and it'll be in there. You could take some CXO relevancy training programs. There are also excellent ones out there, but they'll be $3,000 to $5,000 per week, and you will need several of them. Or you could take our Cloud Architect Career Development program. I don't care. I just want you to have an incredible cloud computing career. Why do I put these expensive skills in our training? Because you can't get hired without them. And more importantly, I know most people don't have the money to train these skills, so that's why we do it. But that's what we do in our training program. How to be CXO relevant, how to design that architecture, how to present that architecture, how to sell that architecture. For free, we do certification training because we saw the stuff that was out there and it was so bad. I didn't want anybody to have to take those certification courses that are out there because you'll never get anything ever out of them other than certified. How to get industry-based hands-on practice of Azure. Yash, I don't know what your goal career is. And just practicing things is no benefit to you whatsoever. For example, if you want to be an architect, practicing coding is worthless. If you want to be an architect, hands-on practice is worthless. If you want to be a data scientist or a data engineer, it's different hands-on practice than if you want to be a cloud architect, which is different hands-on practice than if you want to be a cloud engineer, which is different hands-on practice than if you want to be a cloud developer, which is different cloud practice if you want to be a cloud-based database administrator, which is different if you want to be a big data architect, which is different if you want to be a cloud security architect on Azure. So could you please tell me your career? Because otherwise you're just doing stuff. And if you said to me, how do I jump on an airplane? And I say, where? I would ask you, what's your destination? Because if you said, I'm at London Heathrow Airport, which airport do I take? I'd say, where do you want to go? You want to go to London, Dubai, Cameroon, South Africa, India, Pakistan, Australia, my hometown, Greece, Israel, where I spent a lot of time, another place, Dubai. I need to know where you want to go. So if you give us some background on what you're interested in, then we can tell you what's real hands-on practice. But otherwise, it's just stuff. And just doing stuff doesn't get you anywhere. So if you can clarify your goals, I'd love to help you. I guess you'll agree, but asking to be secure. Cloud security will be a great area in the future, so master cloud security. Cloud security is huge, 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 huge. I'm going to make it real clear. The cloud is less secure than what we used to use in the network and data center, substantially. In our network and data center, we can do security, security, security. If I want my physical security in the data center, if I want to hire some Israeli Mossad agents as snipers on the roof of my data center, I can. If I want to have 1,000 Navy SEALs protecting the outside of my data center, I can. In my data center, I can implement quality of service, MAC address authentication, filtering like you can't even imagine. And in the cloud, in my data center, I can control all ingress, egress points of a very simple to manage control plane, for example. Now I go to the cloud and I lose all my layer 2 security. I lose all my QoS. I have more ingress and access ports. And oh, by the way, the cloud is the biggest high value target in the world. So let's say I've got a website of my cat, Cindy. I've got a beautiful cat, Cindy. Many of you know her. And like one day she's cleaning her fur, and the next day, she's on the ground, and I make a video of my cat, Cindy. Guess what? I'm going to stick that on the cloud and nobody cares. Because if my cat Cindy's website gets hacked, all right, you got some pictures of her rolling around the ground, doing cute stuff. Now imagine I've got assets in my data center that are worth stealing. Now imagine I'm on the cloud. Who's a higher value target? My cute cat Cindy or AWS? Why is AWS the biggest high value target? If I hack into AWS, I get access to their customers. When Azure was hacked, guess what? Cosmo DB, thousands of customers' information was stolen or could have been stolen. And that's the point. So the cloud is a higher value target, which makes it higher risk. And on the cloud, you don't have as good a security. So on the cloud, we got to get really, really complicated. We might need 1,000 VPCs, for example, or virtual private clouds to run networking between them, to isolate and segment our network and our systems. On the cloud, we're going to have to get really creative to bypass the cloud's weaknesses, because you can't in the data center. I want some cool firewalls. I call Cisco or Palo Alto. They come in, I give somebody an electric screwdriver, zip, 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 zip. It's screwed into the rack, it's cabled up. We can put 2 of them that run a heartbeat. In the cloud, we don't have access to the data center, so now we've got to get virtual machines. And then we got to use network load balancers to make sure they don't crash. It's a completely different way. So because of this, the cloud is more vulnerable. Now, if I also told you that most people are so weak on understanding how the cloud works, they know how to configure it, but they're so weak on how it works that the cloud gets hacked every single day. Now, it's usually AWS S3 buckets because people learn how to configure but don't know what they're configuring or why they're configuring it. The other reason these certification courses that are out there are worthless, because all they do is teach you how to configure something without teaching you what it is. So people don't even know what they're doing, and 16% of all cloud attacks are based on misconfigured S3 buckets. So keep that in the back of your mind. Cloud security is huge, 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 huge. I've trained so many cloud security architects in our Cloud Architect Career Development Program. And I think it's fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. Cloud networking, cloud security, huge, wonderful, wonderful careers. Love it. I think you'll be well suited here. Good question, EMB. Jimmy Harry, you're more than welcome. I love helping healthcare people. I did it myself. I made the transition myself. Would love you to join, and I look forward to working with you. I like working with healthcare people. They're very successful in these careers, and also more importantly, I know how hard your life used to be, and I want to make it as good as it could be. Thank you for your service taking care of others. You're from a non-technical background, but very interested in DevOps. Did my cloud practitioner and not sure where to start? You start with Linux networking or DevOps. If you want to be a DevOps engineer, you need to learn DevOps. DevOps, DevOps, and more DevOps. So first, in DevOps, you're going to have to learn to be a software developer first. After you're done being a software developer, you need to learn DevOps tools. And on the cloud and off the cloud. Now, I am not a DevOps engineer, so I don't really coach things, but realize this is not a certification. The cloud practitioner is just a certification, which is the name of the service. Great. It's not going to teach you DevOps. So now what we will need to know as a DevOps engineer to really be good at it is first, being a software developer. Secondly, the DevOps tools. Yes, you will need to know Linux. You should know networking to some degree as well. But it's really about DevOps, DevOps, and DevOps, which means Jenkins, Spinnaker, Git, and all these tools. So realize that this is a very hands-on techie career. It's a good career for software developers that hate being programmers. In fact, most of the best DevOps engineers I know were programmers and hated it and said, okay, I went out of that, so this is my thing. So that's really who this is career is for. I wouldn't just pick it as a career out of a hat unless I was a software developer. But you keep that in the back of your mind. Software development, get real good at coding, then the DevOps tools, then Terraform and Linux, Python, scripting in Linux. And I'm not a DevOps engineer. It is a very good career, but keep that in the back of your mind. But I'm not a DevOps engineer, to give you super deep guidance there. George Crees, I'm almost finishing your CCA studying just for knowledge, not the exam. Will that give you basic understanding of cloud architecture? Not one bit. You came completely from a non-tech background. Architecture is system design. The CCNA is how do you configure something? Design and configuration are exact opposites. So no, that will not teach you any design. You are going to need to take design training. So what you're saying is, and I love the CCNA, it's a good intro to junior level networking. I love it. And you do need networking, but remember, if you were going to be a building architect and you wanted to design hotels and I handed you a hammer and said, hey, by hammering things in, do you think that's going to teach you how to design a building? The answer is, of course not. So George, you're going to need architecture training, not configuration training, architecture training. So how do you design a building from scratch? That's architecture. How do you design an end-to-end solution? What are the business inputs that you're trying to solve? What business problems are you trying to solve? None of that's in the CCNA. None of that. So understand, you can have all the tech skills in the world and you're still not going to be an architect unless you understand digital transformation. So what you're talking about is BGP as tech skills. Ideally, some interior gateway protocol things as tech skills. IP addressing, subnetting, supernetting, yes, covered there. BGP is not covered there. IP network design, that's not covered in the CCNA. DNS, DHCP, ARP, proxy ARP covered in the CCNA. VLANs, VLAN tagging, VLAN trunking, link aggregation group, VIRP, that kind of stuff covered in the CCNA. What's not covered in the CCNA is server virtualization, containers and container orchestration, block storage, object storage, file storage, databases, business applications and how they impact a business, such as CRM, ERP, unified communications things, load balancers, intrusion detection systems, prevention systems, next generation firewalls, VPN concentrators. These are just some of the tech things, and we have to put them together. Now we have to understand how to take a business problem, like a revenue problem. How does a business maximize revenue? We have to be able to figure technology that can do it. How about making the employees do more with less? We have to know what kind of technologies can improve employee productivity. How do you present at a conference? What do you say to the CEO versus CTO versus CFO? Those are the kind of things that you need to know. How do you lead a team of 50 cloud engineers that are going to go build this? But no, architecture has nothing to do with configuring. It has everything to do with designing. And what happens is people study all these engineering things and try and get a cloud architect job, and they can't. Why? Because they know how to do individual components, but not the whole end-to-end design. So studying the CCNA for some introductory networking knowledge, excellent. But you need to learn design. Design and building are not the same. So all these things are basically training you how to use a hammer or a screwdriver, where you need to learn how to design the building, not do the construction. Good question though, George. We've got a program that will teach architecture. We're probably the only people that actually teach architecture. Everybody else just teaches the tech. And that's why I came out of retirement to build this program, because what's covered in certifications is fine for admin people, not even engineers, not architects. So you've got two choices. Choice one, take a program like ours and get a job as an architect, or potentially start as a cloud admin, spend a couple of years there, try to become a cloud engineer years later, and then try to get the business and digital transformation training years later to become a cloud architect, or just study to be a cloud architect in the beginning and get the architect job. Mr. Businessman, would I recommend taking the architectures you designed on interviews and presenting them to display your knowledge? Not really. And here's the reason why. On 90% of real architect interviews, once you reach the stage, they're going to ask you to design an architecture and present it and sell it back to them, like the real job. You won't get a coding test. You won't get a configuring test, but you usually will have to do a presentation. So the point of doing these architectures, Mr. Businessman, is to make sure that you know how to do all the architectures for the job. They will give you the architecture they want. Now, if they ask you things that you've designed, yes, present them. But let them guide it. What you're really trying to do is show in an interview that you're enthusiastic, energetic, motivated, that you're technically competent, willing to go way above and beyond, and that you're a team player with a great attitude, emotional intelligence, and enthusiasm for the job, that you want to be there, that you desire to be there, and that you can do the job, and that they can trust you. That's what you're going to prove on the interviews. But they'll usually give you their own architecture they want you to do. Present that back to them and sell them on that. Great question. Hey, Mike, quick question. What if you have no interest in superiority? Is it possible to be a great? Well, got to remember what an enterprise is. And then we'll get to George's question as the biggest problem we deal with in actual technology. It's possible to be a great enterprise architect, because here's the thing. What does an enterprise architect do? They bring in the experts from all over the world to design the solution. I go meet with a client. I can't design this thing on my own. I've got 25 years experience and I can't design them on their own. I can't. At all. So every architecture I get involved with, I go out and I build a team. I build a cloud network architect, a cloud security architect, a cloud big data architect, a cloud IAM architect, a cloud architect. I bring 50 people. I bring some Devops engineers, some maintenance people, like sysops people. We get together and we design it. What is the function of an cloud architect or enterprise architect? Solve business problems. So if you don't want to do security, make sure you're an expert on the business thing and make sure you know who to call. Who to call. Who to call. And that's really the thing. And then we have to get to George's question, because I got to tell you, that's the most dangerous thinking I've ever seen. So George, you're saying, how can you design what you don't understand? But configuring does not teach you anything. It teaches you nothing. So I want you now to be conductor of an orchestra. That's your new job. It's the same job as an architect. And tell me how playing the flute's going to help you. I want you to design a building that's 1,000 meters tall, and you want to tell me how using a screwdriver is going to help you? That's configuration training. It's not going to. It's a different job. And just because you can configure something, which doesn't teach you how it works. It doesn't teach you how it works. Router OSPF1, network 10.0.0.0, mask, router OSPF1, network 10.0.0.0, 0.0.0.3, area 0. Does that teach you about the LSAs and OSPF? No. Does that teach you how to constrain your L3, what do you call it? Type 3 LSAs in intra areas? Does that teach you about making not so stubby areas, for example, to mitigate type 3s and type 4s and type 5 LSAs from coming in, or totally stubby areas where you can't have a type 3, type 4, or type 5? I mean, it doesn't teach you anything in terms of how to architect it. It just teaches you how to configure it. So if you want to be a building designer, don't learn construction, learn architecture. If you want to be an orchestra conductor, learn how to conduct an orchestra. And I promise you, becoming an airline mechanic does not teach you how to fly an airplane. And I promise you, becoming a nurse does not teach you how to be a doctor. So you can learn somebody else's job, but realize you won't be able to get the job you want because you won't have the skills. We have to design. That's why building architects go to college to learn design. They don't become construction workers first. It's a different job. So if you don't take a design course and learn how the systems work, not how to configure them, but how they work, you're never going to be able to do design. So it has nothing to do with us knowing how to configure. You're never going to configure anything as an architect. You're probably never going to take the technology, ever. It's been 25 years since I've touched the tech. Of the last 100, 125 architects I've graduated, I call them up. They've never touched the tech in their life. They design it. Knowledge on how to design and training on how to design is different than training how to build. So it's up to you. You can focus all your time in learning how to do construction. And then when you go in an interview to be an architect and they say, how do I design this? You'll have no idea, because you're going to know how to do things. And how to do things has nothing to do with how they work. A nursing assistant, washes a patient and feeds them, right? They don't know which medications they need. They don't know which physicians they need to talk to or when they need physical therapy. They know how to do the job. So it's up to you. You can focus on looking how things work and how they get applied together, or you can focus on how to building. But here's the thing. If you focus on how to building, I promise you it will be 100% unemployable as an architect. You must learn how to design, present, and sell. That's the job. Our focus is not tech. Our focus is digital transformation. If you don't learn how to improve the business performance with tech, you know nothing. There is no company that buys tech because it's cool. They buy tech for digital transformation. Digital transformation. Keep that in the back of your mind. That's what we do. We do digital transformation. We design things. You can train all the hands-on tech you want, but realize it won't get you hired. I've got thousands of people that are certified. And when I interview these people, I'm certified. How do I design this? I don't know. How do you design this? I don't know. How do you design this? I don't know. I can configure it. Yeah, great. But I'm not looking for a cloud admin. I'm looking for a cloud architect. So you got to start somewhere. It's how does this stuff work? Not how to configure it. How does it work? That's the key. How does it work? How do the pieces and parts fit together? Otherwise, you can take all these learn by doing courses all you want. I get thousands of students coming from them. They've taken these learn by doing courses for years. You know what happens? They go and interview. Nobody's interested in them. Why? Because they don't know design. They don't know anything about architecture. All they know is engineering. So, got to learn somewhere. Your training should be on how it works and how to design it, how to present it, how to sell it, how to build a business case. That is the job. So I recommend you studying that job. It's up to you. But if you don't study the job, you're definitely not going to be hired for this job. You may get other jobs, and that's fine. So I say train for the job you want. If you want to be an architect, that's not going to get you there. Hello, Mike. One with the knowledge of software engineering skills in GB has served who wants to continue their career as a cloud engineer. What's your advice? Learn cloud engineering. Learn cloud engineering. So this means learning the network and learning the data center, not software engineering, because that's a totally different career. So make sure you know BGP and OSPF and IP addressing and subnetting and supernetting. VLANs and this IP addressing, ARP, proxy ARP, DNS, DHCP, block storage, object storage, file storage, virtualization, virtual machine, containers and container orchestration. Next generation firewalls, VPS concentrators, IDS, IPS systems, authentication systems, authorization and accounting systems, those kind of systems. Learn that. Now, the good news, you have some software engineering, which, good, that counts for 5 to 10% of the job. The other percent of the job on the things that I'm talking about. Now, next, make sure you get really good at cloud building, because engineers touch the cloud building. Make sure you've got extremely good Linux skills, because the cloud engineer is practically a Linux sysadmin or Linux engineer with all the Linux working they do. Terraform, make sure you've got good Terraform skills, infrastructure as code skills. You're probably software engineering, you're probably good with coding, but a lot of software engineers don't do Python, they do Java and other things. Make sure you know Python, because it's critical for everything. Make sure you're good at bash shell scripting. But really, that's the path for an engineer. That's the right path to get you there. And that will definitely help you. And that should get you cloud hired. It's all about the network and the data center. And the reason it's so networky and data center is we got to remember what the cloud is. It's just a network and a data center. So keep that in the back of your mind and you'll be good to go. So let me end on these things. I know my team's got a lot of things going on today. So remind you this afternoon, we have a completely free Cloud Architect interview session. The link is in the chat box in the description below. Make sure you take advantage of it. In addition to that, on Friday, we have a completely free How to Build Your Cloud Architect or Cloud Engineer resume session. Tomorrow, we've got a completely free How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. And it'll be on Zoom, so you can come and ask questions. It'll be a great experience for you. Great experience for you. And currently, we have a 30% off promotion off of all of our courses that'll get you cloud hired. We've got a Cloud Architect Career Development course if you want to be a cloud architect, a Cloud Engineer Career Development program if you want to be a cloud engineer, and our programs are hyper-focused, comprehensive, and they're about everything necessary to build your career. It's been an honor spending the last 2 hours with you today. Love speaking to everybody. Love helping you build some careers. Looked like we had some people join us in the last minute or two. Unfortunately, we can't stay any later than our 2 hours of allotted time today because we have some other things that we need to do. But we will be back on Friday for more free questions and answers. Tomorrow, join me on that How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. And we will talk about everything, and it'll be on Zoom. You'll know how to get hired, what needs to be on your resume, the things to learn, how to get hired when you have no experience. We'll go through everything, how to skip HR. It's going to be a great experience. So today, free interview. Tomorrow, how to get hired. Friday, LinkedIn and resume, and 30% off of everything that we're doing. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Get cloud hired, everybody.